Hi, it's Cassie Cash, that Shakespeare girl. This week's question is, did Shakespeare drink Malmsey? This week I am coming to you from my living room. I live just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, which means we never ever see snow. And today, starting at 3 a.m. this morning until right now, which is almost 3 p.m. in the afternoon, it has been snowing outside. And I mean real snow. Let me see if I can show you guys the snow. See if you can look out my window. If you see that, that's our backyard. That is like a ton of snow. That is over 4 inches of snow. This coming from people who never see snow. So what has happened is we are completely out of power. And so I'm doing today's video on the iPad, speaking to you from my living room. And I'm doing it now because we have light coming in from the window and you can see me. I discovered something really fun. Have you read Richard III? I've decided Richard III is actually a Christmas play. And here's why. Famously, in Richard III, Act 2, Scene 4, and I had notes on my computer which I would reference, except for the whole power issue. So check my reference there, but I believe it's Act 2, Scene 4, the first murderer. They're going in there to kill George, Duke of Clarence, in the play. And legend held that Richard III had the Duke of Clarence murdered by either stabbing him or drowning him in a vat of Malmsey. It's a drink, it's a wine, it's a dessert wine. Obviously, the legend around Richard III and the Duke of Clarence is famous. It's a famous legend, it's very popular. It was a huge sort of mystery going on when Shakespeare was writing his play and presenting it to his audience in Renaissance England. People wanted to know, how did the Duke of Clarence die? They thought he might have been stabbed. They thought he might have been drowned in a vat of Malmsey, which, interestingly enough, is not all that uncommon. There's a story of a guy, a navyman named Horatio Nelson, whose body was preserved in brandy as the ship finished the voyage across the sea so that he could be buried when he arrived at their destination. There's also other sort of pre-embalming methods of people preserving bodies in alcohol. They were obviously not trying to preserve the Duke of Clarence. He was supposedly drowned in the Malmsey, but this drink was stored in a butt of Malmsey, which is the wording that gets used in the play Richard III. The first murderer basically threatens to drown the Duke of Clarence in a butt of Malmsey that is supposedly in the next room. That's what the text says. There's the butt of Malmsey in the next room. So he threatens to drown him in this. Well, a butt of Malmsey would be about 105 gallons of alcohol. The fumes off of it alone were enough to knock somebody unconscious, but certainly 105 gallons is more than enough to drown a person if they can't, get to air. Now, the play itself doesn't specifically answer the question. The fun part about his story is he got in a whole lot of trouble, right? Richard III obviously wanted to have him killed. He was in the Tower of London. He was scheduled to be executed, and Parliament passed a Bill of Attainder that said the Duke of Clarence is to be beheaded. That never happened. Or at the very least, the body that is buried at Tewkesbury Abbey under the name George, Duke of Clarence is not beheaded. The body was exhumed and the head is still intact. So if you assume that the body buried as George, Duke of Clarence is who they say it is, then he wasn't beheaded the way Parliament declared that he should be. So then that's why there's this mystery of, well, what actually happened? Did somebody sneak up there? Obviously he's dead. So did somebody sneak up there and stab him? Did they drown him in a Malmsey butt? And Shakespeare's play has the first murderer go in there and the text says, take that, and if that doesn't do, we'll drown you in the Malmsey butt next door. I'm paraphrasing, go read it. I didn't memorize this to act it out for you. I'm telling you something interesting. The stage direction says that the first murderer stabs him and then they carry the body off. So you're left to the discretion of the director to decide how they want to stage this, whether the audience actually sees the Duke of Clarence get drowned, or if you're just left to assume that he drowns off stage. The only stage direction in the play itself is that the body gets carried off stage. It says exit with the body. That's all it says. So people often think that in Richard III, the Duke of Clarence was drowned in a Malmsey butt, and that's why they think this happens, because it's alluded to, but it's totally up to someone who's producing the play to decide whether or not the audience is going to actually see that take place on stage. It's implied, it's threatened, but it's never actually indicated in the stage direction. Now, why does all that have to do with Christmas? Well, here's why it has to do with Christmas and why Shakespeare would have would have drank Malmsey. Malmsey was a sweet dessert wine developed and grown in the Canary Islands. That's because in England, the grapes to create this wine do not grow very well, or at all, I think, in England. And so they had to import their wine. And this was a famous wine. Lots of people drank it. Now, it was 12 times the cost of ale. So, you had people who drank a lot. They drank a lot of alcohol. The alcohol was safer to drink than water, and so it was really a much more common drink than you think of now, because people didn't really have access to clean water. So they would drink ale as just kind of their beverage, the way a lot of people drink sodas now. And so there was a lot of ale consumption because it was cheap. Malmsey was for the rich and the royal and for special occasions like Christmas, which is why we are going to conclude that yes, Shakespeare drank Malmsey, because it was hugely popular in England. It was hugely popular around Christmas, and Shakespeare was, by the time he was well established in his career, he was also well enough established socially. Remember, he bought the second most expensive home in Stratford. So he had the status, he had the money. He was socially one of the groups that would drink Malmsey, definitely for Christmas and possibly for other things too. But Christmas was this fun time where everybody from nobility to the common folk all kind of met on an equal plane. And Christmas was this great unifier. Everybody is celebrating this holiday. Everybody is partaking of delicacies they don't normally get the year round. And so Malmsey was this drink that they would have had. Now, to me, it's a completely foreign idea to have a sweet dessert wine for breakfast, but apparently it's what they did. And if you're drinking a lot of alcohol anyway, like if you're drinking, ale or beer or some form of alcohol with every meal, and the indications when you look at Renaissance culinary traditions, that is what they were doing in England at the time for the water issue. It was just a sanitary concern. If you wanted something to wash your food down, ale was a better choice. So they were drinking alcohol all day long anyway, and so having this sweet dessert wine at breakfast would be kind of like us having a mimosa for breakfast. It's an idea of, well, this is just a breakfast drink. So this is why we are concluding that Richard III is now a Christmas play, or can count as a Christmas play, because Malmsey was a Christmas drink, and it's featured prominently in this play. If If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. I want you to know that the show notes for this episode, including all of my research links to the image I mentioned, the articles I mentioned, and the research I did to put this together for you, and to come to the conclusion that yes, Shakespeare drank Malmsey, on the blog, CassidyCash.com, hop over there. I've got a freebie going on right now that you can grab. It is a 2018 Shakespeare calendar. It's all 12 months of next year. Each month is themed for Shakespeare. So it's got a historical photo, it's got a quote from one of his plays or his sonnets, and it helps you hang it on the wall, and you get to be Shakespearean the entire year. And what's better than that, really? So, thank you so much for being here. I love talking with you each week, especially about Shakespeare. So,